Alright, so we understood that Spring Boot does a lot of magic for us, but the run method is actually the one which basically takes a lot of responsibility behind the scene. In the last session, we understood the run method of the Spring application class basically help us to bootstrap our Spring Boot application. But in this video, we're going to be diving deeper and we're going to be understanding how the run method actually works. What are the different responsibilities the run method actually have to bootstrap a Spring Boot application or to start a Spring Boot application. And along the way, we're going to be understanding the beauty of the run method and how it can help you to externalize properties, how the run method can help you to change the behavior of your Spring Boot application, and we're going to be understanding how we can use it in real time. And one more good thing that we're going to be doing in this session is we're going to be understanding some of the important annotations of the Spring Boot, like @Spring Boot configuration and @Spring Boot application. These are the two important annotations that the interviewer asks you a lot whenever you go for any Spring Boot interviews. What happens to my voice? Okay, I'm not going to restart it, by the way. Okay, so this is what we're going to be discussing. It's going to be very, very interesting. And I think in this video, we're going to be talking all about how the run method works internally. And also one more important thing we're going to be understanding about the IOC container, how a IOC container basically gets created behind the scene by the run method and how basically it works. So let's just do a postmortem of the run method of Spring Boot. And I assure you that you're gonna be loving it because it's going to be important for your Spring Boot journey and for your Spring Boot foundation. So let's just get started. My name is Avilash. You are watching Selenium Express. Without wasting any time, let's get started. Guys, before you watch this video, one request. If you're watching this video and if you're liking it, please like this video and do subscribe to this channel to stay connected. And as you guys already know that my channel is, my channel name is Selenium Express. Some people think it's a tasting channel. Basically, it is not. It's a devs channel. So if you have friends, if you have juniors, seniors, please do share this channel with them so that they can find my contents. And that is going to help me a lot. Yeah. Thank you very much. Let's just get started with this video. All right, so everything is working good. Now I have one question for you. The question is, who is creating the application context? Who is creating the web application context? Not application context, web application context, by the way, because we are dealing with a web application right here. And this is a proof that in the log we are getting already web application context is getting initialized. But who is initializing the web application context? Who is creating the container for me? I have already told you, the run method. The run method behind the scene is creating a container for me. I'm going to show you the code, how it is going to create the container for you, but let's hold on for that. But I don't want you to trust me. I want to prove it. So how can I prove it? Let's just do one thing. Let me create a simple class here. The class name is, let's say, college. All right. Let's say inside the college class, one method is there, public void print college name. Okay. Let's say I have a simple sys out here. College name is, let's say college name is IIT. All right. So that is a simple class and having a method over here called print college name. Let's say I want to create the object for this class, but not by myself. I want Spring to create the object for this. So I can do what? I can just write add component. All right. So if I do write the add component, as I have told you that this college class is present inside which package? Inside the hello Spring Boot app package. So does the object of college class will be created by Spring? Yes, of course, because the starter app is going to act as a configuration file right now, and it is having a component scan annotation. So if the component scan annotation is on top of a class, whatever package it is inside, all those classes will be scanned. So inside this package, whatever class is there will be scanned. So college will be also scanned. and this object will also be created by Spring, and that object will also be there inside my container, which is web application context. Now let's just try to get that object called college from the web application context, and now let's just use the print college name method to verify that whether the object is getting created by Spring or not. So as I have told you, inside the starter app, I have the run method. This run method will create the container for me. And the proof is, if I hover on this run method, look at that. What it is returning? It is returning a configurable application context. So if I do control 1 here, and if I do assign statement to a new local variable, look at that. Configurable application context it is returning. So this is a application context object or a web application context object, or simply I can say this is a container object. So the run method is just returning me a container object, which is a configurable application context. Now you might be surprised. Okay, Vilas, you just told that this run method will create an application context, which is a type of web application context. But why it is returning configurable application context? See, all this application context, web application context, configurable application context, XML path application context, annotation config application context. We know about this thing from our Spring core days, right? So all these are different types of container. End of the day, their job is same. They will be holding the objects created by Spring. But the configurable application context is kind of a generic type. So if I click on this configurable application context, you can see it extends to application context. So application context is the root. This is another interface which extends to application context. Okay. So if I do Control T on this, you can see all these are different types of container, which is basically extending or inheriting to configurable application context. So here you can see that annotation config web application context, XML web application context, generic application context, annotation config reactive web application context. All this kind of application context, so these are different types of application context that we have, or the container that we have. The generic type, or they all are extending or implementing to the configurable application context. So that is more of a generic type. The run method is returning me that. Okay, so now let me do one thing. From this container, I know this is a container. Okay, so to this container, I'm gonna ask, okay, container, can you give me the college class object, please? Because I know the college is already having an annotation called component. So you might have created the object of that. Give me that object because I want to call this method. I want to call this method called print college name. So to call this method, I need the object of college. So what should I do? I'll go to my starter app.java, and right here, I will just say container.getBean. And I want to get the bean of a class called college.class. Okay. Now let me just do control 1 assign statement to a new local variable. Now this is getting me the college object. So now let me do one thing. Let me print the college object first. And the next thing that I want to do, I want to call the college class method called college.print college name. And let me see if I'm getting a null pointer exception or if I'm able to print the college name. If the college object will be created, if the college object I will get from here only I'm getting the college object, right? From here only I'm getting the college object. I'm not creating the college object by myself. I'm asking the container that, hey container, can you get me the college object please? So this is the line which is basically helping me to get the college object, right? And if this will be null, then here I'll be getting a null pointer exception. Okay, if this college object I will get from the container, then I will be successfully able to call this particular method. So let me just try tasting this. Let me just do a sysout and give some separator here. And let me run this particular application one more time. But before that, let me stop this application and let me start it one more time. Run as Java application. And there you go. And you can see the college name is IIT is getting printed over here. That means this particular line does work. I'm basically able to print this particular line. And also if I'll go back, you can see this is where I'm printing the college reference. And this is of course here. So this can assure you that the run method behind the scene is creating the container object for you. The run method is behind the scene creating an application context for you. And one more fun fact is that the banner that you are also seeing over here, the Spring Boot banner, this is also getting created and this is also getting printed by the run method only. So the run method is not only helping you to set off a application context or a container, it is also printing you the Spring banner that you are seeing in your console. I'm sure that you are having fun, but one more thing I want to ask you. Okay, now I'm asking for the bean to the container, right? That, hey container, get me the college bean. And the college bean is already been created by Spring and kept it inside the container, because if I go to the college class, there is a component annotation here. And that is instructing Spring to create the object of the college class. But what about if I remove the component? Then obviously my application will not start, and this getBean method will be giving me an exception that the college bean is not there in the container, so I cannot give you that. So if I'll start this application, I'm getting an exception. It is failed to start. Okay, port number 8080 is already on use because the previous instance that I have, it is still running. Let me close this, or let me stop this. Let me run my application one more time because I will be using the same 8080 port number. And you can see right now I'm getting an error over here called no such bean definition exception. And it is saying no qualifying bean called college is available, right? No qualifying bean called college is available because obviously from the college class I have removed the add component. So one more way to create a bean, you already know, you can go to the starter app. I told you your application will be bootstrapped from here. So I can use it as a configuration class also. So I can come over here and can create a bean for my college like this. Public college, and create the college object here, and I can return a new college object like this, and I can make it a bean like this. There you go. So now I think after creating this college bean over here, my application will start fine and I will not be getting that exception. So let's see that I'm creating the college bean over here. So this is another way to instruct Spring to create an object for the college class. So now if I'll go over here and if I'll run it as a Spring application or a Java application, let's see that if the things are working fine, and you can see the college name is IIT. And whenever I'm writing this line number 20, it is not giving me any exception because the college bean is already available inside the container, because this is where I'm creating a bean. I'm instructing Spring to create a bean, and Spring is creating a bean and adding it inside my container. So whenever I'm asking for it, there is no problem. But now one question is that the starter app can also be used as a configuration file. And if you have one or more bean over here, if you are also using this file to create beans, or if you are keeping your bean related configurations over here, you can also mark this as a add configuration. Okay, so this is one more convenient way to tell Spring that this is a configuration file, because someone is creating beans over here, or there are one or more beans are present over here. So you can either write a configuration annotation, or you can write a Spring Boot configuration annotation here, right? And either of the annotation you can use because they both are same annotations. And by writing the Spring Boot configuration or configuration over here is telling Spring that this is a configuration file. This is just a marker annotation that you have. You can do various things with this, but right now you just understand for any configuration file, you can keep this Spring Boot configuration annotation over here if you're keeping your beans over here. So that is good. And now if you see your application, I feel like, I just explained everything that I wanted to explain to you guys right here in this session. So one last thing before I wrap up. If you see your starter app, I told you this starter app is used as a configuration file, or this starter app is used as a source to your application. Okay, this starter app is being used as a starter file for your application. Your application execution is started from here, and the Spring application here is bootstrapping your application on the basis of the starter app. So basically, one more thing you can also understand you can go to any other class. You can also create any fake class here called app2, let's say. And if I go to the app2 class, can I use it as a source? Can I go to the starter app and inside the Spring application here that I have written in the line number 19, can I, instead of starter app, can I just write app2.class? Can I do this? Absolutely, you can do this. But this will not help you to start your application because the app2 does not have any annotation or anything. So if I'll do Control S, and if I'll try to start my application with the help of the app2, then this will not work. So let me go to the starter app. Let me just start this application. You will see that this will not work. Again, the same error. It is trying to create a web server, servlet web server factory, and this is not working, right? So basically what you can do, you can again go to the app2 and you can start giving your annotation like enable auto configuration and blah, blah, blah. You can just give over here and that error will go away. And you can go to the starter app again and can try all this thing, and this should help you to start your application, right? And again, you are having some issues right now. The college bean is not available because this bean is not present inside that class called app2. So you have to also create the college bean over here in order to fix it. So I just wanted to say you can use any of your classes as a starter class for your application, but make sure that the class like app2, if you are creating, you have to mention all the different annotations that I have shown you right over here. You have to mention all those annotations right over there. Okay, so now I'll reboot back my code because I just wanted to show you that the uses, the importance of why I'm adding this starter class over here inside the Spring application. One last thing is that all these three annotations that you are seeing are the building block of Spring Boot. And all these annotation are going to help you to start a Spring Boot application. So Spring Boot also thought, okay, if the developer is using all this annotation and if he has to keep all this annotation by himself, so why don't I create a simple annotation which is the bulk of all these three annotation. So Spring Boot has an annotation called SpringBootApplication. And if you're going to use this annotation, let me do a Control-Shift-O to remove all the imports. This annotation is also going to do the exact same thing what basically our other three annotations are doing. Let me just do a right click, run as Java application, and let's see what is going to happen over here. Now, okay, 8080 is already in use. Let me just kill the other instance. And let me start my application one more time. Okay, and you can see that your application has started fine. You are getting your outputs over here, and also you're getting that Tomcat is started on 8080 port number. So just do remember this Spring Boot application, if you go here and can hover on this, you can see it is already containing Spring Boot configuration. It is already containing enable auto configuration. It is also containing the component scan. So you can also go inside the Spring Boot application and can cross verify this. It is containing this three annotation: Spring Boot configuration, enable configuration, and component scan. So all these three annotations are available over here that we have just learned. So you can use this annotation as a shortcut annotation for enable configuration, which is help you to enable the auto configuration, for add Spring Boot configuration, which is basically mark your file as a configuration file where we can create beans and the other stuff. And also the Spring Boot application can help you to, do component scanning. Okay, so do remember that. Okay, so let me tell you another thing. I actually wanted to wrap up. Then there are a lot of thoughts in my mind right now, and I feel like I need to give you this. If I'll not give you right now, I'll forget and I'll never be able to make another video. You know how lazy I am, right? So just allow me to say everything that I have inside me. Okay, so before I tell you the next thing, I just want to just clean something over here. I'll just remove this bean and I'll remove all these stops that I have just written here just to make you understand. And I'll just clean the configurable application context here, because you guys know right now the run method basically gives you a application context or a configurable application context. So let me just remove everything. So I have something really simple over here, and I'll tell you one more interesting thing here right now. And the interesting thing is this. So guys, how I'm running my application right now. I'm running my application like this. Right click, run as Java application. This is how I'm doing. Also, you can also run it as a Spring Boot application like this. Let me just kill any instance if it is running. You can also run it like this, run as Spring Boot app. And this is going to start your Spring Boot application like this. Okay. Or you can just go to your project, the project that you have. You can also click on Spring Boot app over here. And this will also run your project like this. Okay, which is cool. Right now, I want to tell you something, and I want to ask you something. And that thing is, let me just give you a task. The task is, now your server is running in port number 8080. You know that whenever you are starting your Spring Boot application, the run method is basically helping you to create a Tomcat instance. And right now it has deployed your project on port number 8080. Right now, I want you to deploy it in port number 9090. So how are you going to be doing it? So I also don't want you to touch the code. You cannot touch the code, but help me to deploy this application in port number 9090. And to do it, you need to configure some properties, and externally, I want you to do it. Okay. So what you will do, you will go over here to this Hello Spring Boot to this project, and you want to run this project, but you want to set some configuration with this. And you want to add some arguments to the program. You can see right now, this is the Spring Boot app. This is your Hello Spring Boot app. Okay, this is where you are basically running the starter file. But while I'm running this particular thing, I want to set some arguments. So I can go to the arguments tab, and here I can add some program arguments. Okay, like this. Give a double dash and just write server.port. And I want to run my server on the port number 9090. Okay, so inside the arguments tab, this is basically what we call program arguments. So the var args, I'm giving a property called server.port, and the value of that property is 9090, right? Right now, let me apply this and let me run my application, and let me see if my application has been started on port number 9090, but not. It's not started. It's started on port number 8080 still. So I want to control my application by passing in some program arguments, but it didn't work. But why did not work? What is the reason behind it? Let's check out. So basically, you know that whatever the program arguments that I'm giving, I'm going to be capturing it over here inside the string args of the main method. Okay, so let me just do one thing. Let me give a breakpoint in the line number 13 one more time. Let me kill this instance, and let me just run this particular application one more time. Sorry, I should not be running. I should be debugging, right? So let me just do right click, debug as, debug configuration. And here I have to go to the arguments, and let me just add this as a program arguments. Let me hit debug, and let me just do switch. Okay, let my program flow stop over here. Now you can see if I hover on the args right now, there are a few things over here. There is one, this is my property. This is something that I have added as a developer. This is maybe something which is coming like, some ANSI property, which is automatically gets set by my editor or my IDE. So forget about the 0th argument, but this is the argument that I have set. This is the argument that I am basically giving, right? I'm adding this argument while I'm launching my program because I want to control my application, and I want to change the behavior of my application, and I want to run it in the port number 9090 instead of the port number 8080. Okay, so with the args, I'm capturing this server.port, but it is not in action. So how to basically give Spring this argument so that the Spring will behave accordingly. The Spring will basically behave accordingly the arguments that I'm giving. And for that, what I will do, I will basically capture all the arguments from here and I'll pass it in the run method. So let me just do one thing. Let me kill this and let me just add the arguments to the run method. I'm going to put the args over here. So this args I'm taking and I'm adding it over here. Okay. So now let's just see like what will happen. Now I will go back to the normal perspective. I'll go out of the debug perspective. I'll just simply run. I'll just simply just go to over here and do right click. Let's say run as run configuration. Let me simply run my program, and you can see with Spring Boot this ANSI console output, all these things are checked, right? So these arguments are also going. That's why you are seeing some extra arguments over there. But the arguments that I mostly care about, this server.port 9090. Now let me click on run. Let's see if there is any change in behavior. Now few things I can see. The console looks a little colorful, and also I can see the Tomcat has started on port number 9090, right? So why this color things came in my console? Now it's like, it's somebody has put some life to all the, gray color it used to be. Like it looks very colorful right now, and the Tomcat port number is also changed. So basically, while I am running my application, the arguments, inside the arguments, I'm setting some properties, and those properties I'm giving it to my Spring application run method based on these arguments. And that's how your Spring application is behaving. And all this color thing is coming, I feel, because of some property. So now let me just stop this. Let me just start it in debug one more time. Let me just go to debug as let's say debug configuration. You see, like, this ANSI console output is checked. I think this is helping you to color your application. If you're going to uncheck this, I think that color thing will not come. Let me just keep on debug right now. If I hover my cursor here, you can see these are the two things. Right now, these two things I'm giving it over here, right? I think this color thing, this is only doing the 0th argument. Okay. Spring output ANSI enabled always. Let me just resume my application. That color thing, let me just stop it. Let me just stop my console, and let me go over here. Let's say debug as debug configuration. I will uncheck this. Okay, ANSI console output. I'll uncheck this. The arguments is set to 9090. Let it be. Let me click on debug. I will not switch. I'll hover in this. See that argument is gone right now, and right now we are only getting the 0th element, which is server.port, whatever we are sending. And now I think if I'll resume my program, obviously this property will be in effect, but the colorful console will not be there. So see, the color is gone, but the Tomcat is started on port number 9090. I hope this is making sense, that how you are changing the behavior of your Spring Boot application by using this args over here. So it's good that you always need to pass these arguments inside the run method whenever you are using it. One last thing before I wrap up. If you see this run method, you are using the Spring application instance, and you are using this run method on top of it. If you go to this run method, you can see this run method is basically giving you a configurable application context. And basically, if you see this is the same run method that we are discussing, which basically returns the application context. So if you're going to see and look into all the code here, we will not spend time looking into all the code, but I have told you that run method will print the banner. You can see here the banner is getting printed. Print banner. There is a method which is helping you to print the banner. It is doing something. You can see it is helping you to create the application context. There is a method called create application context. Behind the scene, it is creating the application context. So as I have told you, the run method will help you to create the application context. It will help you to print the banner. It will also help you to set up some listeners, and it will do some other stuffs as well. But the important thing that I want to show you, if I'll do Control O, and if I look for the run methods, you can see there are different run methods which are available over here. And I just want to drag your concentration to one of the run method that I have here, which is a static run method. And maybe this is the run method we can look into. So this is another run method which does the exact same work. Don't worry about looking into this code. I'm going to tell you in a minute. I'll tell you this one thing. This run method is also going to return a configurable application context. But the important thing here is that this is a static method. And this run method doesn't do anything. It will take two things at a time. One thing is the source and one thing is the arguments. You can see the argument is a var arg. So you can also pass array over here. So you can also use this run method, which is a static run method. So instead of, if we go to the starter app, instead of creating an object right here for the Spring application and calling this run method using the Spring application, you are coming to this run method which has all the code, right? So it is tracking when your application has started. That's why it is saying that your application has started in this much second. So the code is here. It is tracking the time. It is creating the application context. It is creating the banner. All this code has been written inside this run method, which is basically a non-static method. But also there are some static method which does the same work like this method, which internally uses the same run method that I have just shown you. So if you go over here, this run method takes two things. One thing is the source, another thing is the argument, and internally it calls this run method, and this is another run method that we have. And this run method behind the scene uses the same thing, new Spring application, and it calls that run method that I was just showing you, this run method. So same thing only. We can call this run method directly, just the way we have done, or we can just use this run method or either of this run method, because behind the scene, this couple of run methods uses this run method only. So let me just do one thing. I will go ahead and I will use this run method because this is a static method, and I don't have to create object of the Spring application because this run method is inside the Spring application. So I don't have to create the object of Spring application in order to call this run method. So it will be really handy. So even Spring Boot does that when it will create projects for you. So I'll go to the starter app. So instead of doing this thing, I will do one thing. I will just replace this couple of lines of code into one line. I'll just do SpringApplication.run and let me use this, and this is my source, starter app dot class. Okay, and the arguments I want to pass, and I will just remove this couple of things. Okay, so now this is how I want to start my Spring application. So I just wrapped up that couple of line into this line. So if I go to this run method right now, this run method is taking the source and taking the arguments, and internally it is calling another run method, and this run method internally basically capturing all your details and passing it to the Spring application. It is creating the new Spring application object, and it is just doing that same thing, new Spring application. It is passing your source and it is calling the run method, passing in the arguments. So the same run method is being called and it is passing the arguments over here. So same thing it is doing behind the scene. I will give that opportunity to Spring to handle that thing behind the scene for me, and this will make my code looks a little bit cleaner. And I feel you understand that why I'm writing SpringApplication.run and why I'm passing this starter app.class and why I'm passing this args over here and what work it does behind the scene. I hope this is clear. Alright, so that's it for the part 2 of this video. In the part 3, we're going to be understanding a lot of fun facts. For an example, we're building applications right now, but what about deployment? How will we be deploying our Spring Boot application to cloud, to AWS, to Azure? How can we basically take our Spring Boot application and can deploy it in a machine? For that, we need to build jars and vars, right? And in Spring Boot, there is it's a little different. The way you basically build jar or build var or build a archive, the Java archive for Spring Boot application is going to be a little different. In the next video, I'm going to give you a complete deep dive on the deployment process of the Spring Boot, and I'm sure that you're going to be loving it. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care, happy coding. Do subscribe.